And welcome to Flightdeck Live, powered by SportBuff, where if you go to sportbuffshop.com and use the promo code AlsFlightDeck10 at checkout, you will save 10% off the entire order. I'm Tim Capper, along with Cliffy D. Pine. How you doing, bud? It's hard to believe that the preseason is finally finally over, and it's now regular season game week in just about just a little over 24 hours.
I think it'd be closer to 48 technically, but yes, your point is well taken. Preseason is officially over now with the Montreal Alouettes and Ottawa RedBlacks having played their second preseason game. This time the Alouettes come out on top in front of the Ottawa faithful by a score of 24-16. I mean, yeah, we talked about it last week, and we'll talk about it again. It was about player evaluation. It was about seeing who could possibly make this team, whether it's active roster, practice roster, what have you. I mean, we got to see a lot tonight of the. I really hate using the term bubble player, but that's really what a lot of these guys are bubble players. They could make the team, they could not make the team, but they would have had to have an outstanding showing. And there were a lot of guys that had a very outstanding showing this evening in the nation's capital.
Yeah, that's true. And what I thought was funny is that it did not. It started off like a regular season game in a way because who would have thought a preseason game and a weather delay? So,
oh boy, Mother Nature has really been on one over the past couple of weeks, hasn't she?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had lousy weather for the second week of training camp. It was raining throughout the preseason game in Montreal, and yeah, tonight's game was delayed close to an hour as a result of thunderstorms and lightning in the Ottawa area. I mean, it's wild. There's just no other way to describe it. Like you couldn't script this even if you wanted to.
No, and props to anybody who went to the game tonight. I will admit, props to anybody who went because.
Went and stuck around too, because again,
yeah.
as is protocol with the Canadian Football League, when there's a weather delay, you can't just sit in the stands and wait it out. Even if you got your rain gear and everything, they want you in the concourse. They want you out of the seats. They want you, outside and waiting it out with everybody else. So some people may have decided, you know what, I got these tickets for free from the boss, and I just want to go home. And I'm sure a lot of people decided, the heck with it, because it did not look full at TD Place. But if you were there, whether you were supporting the Alouettes or the RedBlacks, and you stuck it out to the end, props to you. I mean, you done good as far as I'm concerned to stick it out and support both these teams essentially.
Yeah, and by the way, props to. By the way, I wish I would have known about this. The Alouettes regular starters actually watched the game tonight from Casual Sport somewhere in Montreal. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's like if I had been the team, I would have promoted it and maybe set some. Anyways, that's for another day. That's for the podcast on Wednesday. Let's talk about this because as we mentioned in the scroll below, is that cut down is going to be at 10 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, and then from there we will find out who's going to be on this squad for 2025. And what you wanted to at least mention too, that's something that we usually do every year. We're going to try to. We want you guys to join us on sometime on Sundays. Stay tuned to all of our socials for that, as we're going to do our yearly. Should we say introduction to the 2025 squad by going over who made and who did not make this squad?
I guess we can call it more of a recap, really, of who ended up making the roster and who ended up being sent home. I guess call it a final cut down day recap, if you want, for lack of a better term. But Sunday evening. Yeah, well, once we know for sure who's going to be making this team, who's going to be on the practice roster, even who could end up on the 1 or 6 game injured list as a result as well, because you're going to see that as well. And that too also has to be declared to the league once you release your final cuts. So make sure you join us Sunday evening. Again, pay attention to all of our socials. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following us on the Alouettes Flightdeck, however you're consuming us. Make sure you're on board. You'll get that notification when we decided to go live. And that's the thing. We will go live. Just like we're doing right now, we're going to go live and we're going to break down the final cuts and see who's going to become a part of this 2025 Montreal Alouettes team.
By the way, if we are live, it's something that we are not usually not able to do when we do a Flight Deck live, but please chime in. We want to hear what you guys think about the game tonight. Who you think stood out? Who you think may or may not be making this team when the cuts do come out tomorrow night. So but please, by all means, chime in if you can. Let's talk about this game here, Cliff. As I said, even with the delay itself, we talked last week, even though the Alouettes offense was anemic, it really did want to see how well some of these guys did, because there were, I know you talk about, you don't like calling them bubble players, but really a lot of these guys were trying to determine where they may end up on this roster. And what I thought was very interesting, there are a couple things that really stood out to me. Obviously, with Caleb Evans starting, because he finally did get the clearance that he needed in order to play tonight. James Morgan was going to play, and obviously Jonathan Senecal. As I said, the Owls started the game off right, got a fumble, was able to, turn it into points. By the way, that was something that we saw and loved when it came to the preseason it came to the inter-squad game in St. Jerome. So they're continuing their trend here, and that bodes well, in my opinion, going forward to the 25 season.
No, there was definitely a lot to like. Just the momentum, it felt like. I feel like the Alouettes were a lot more prepared going into this game that they were against Ottawa last week at Percival Molson Stadium. And finally scoring touchdowns, I think that's a big thing right there. I mean, you can tell, like, all the players that didn't make the trip to Ottawa tonight, essentially, they've made the team. There's no two ways about it. They've made the team. So when they had their opportunity to shine last week, some of them did, but most of them didn't. And maybe it's self-preservation more than anything else, making sure they don't do anything to get hurt or cause injury or anything like that. So the players that played tonight played with purpose. And let's face it, a lot of them, this was their chance. If they played this game, balled out, did amazing things, yeah, that's going to definitely improve their odds of landing on, if not the active roster, then at least the practice roster. And there's quite a few guys that really, really stood out, and I was very impressed with it, to the point where I'm saying, okay, there's just no way this guy is not on the team in some way, shape, or form. And that's what you want to see in a game like this, because it's not a dress rehearsal, because it wasn't a dress rehearsal in the sense that the starters come in, play a couple of series just to show what they can do, and then it's talent evaluation time. No, this is talent evaluation for both teams, essentially from start to finish.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, one of the things that really stood out to me today, obviously, we've been talking about when it comes to who's going to be the Alouettes' third string quarterback this year. And I will admit, first and foremost, I want to say, Cliff, seeing Caleb Evans run for that touchdown made me feel absolutely amazing, because considering what he went through last year with his injury, being able to say, and it looked like it was the Caleb Evans of old when it came to running. It really did. And it was, I think, first and foremost to me, and if I were to give like a game ball or a start of the game or whatever it may be, that would be, my moment, really, is because, any player going through a major injury and then being able to come like that, it looked like Caleb really had not missed a beat at all.
Yeah, it would appear that the rumors of the demise of Caleb Evans have been greatly exaggerated, because he played extremely well tonight. I give him full marks for how he was able to not just run the ball, which we expect him to do being a mobile quarterback, but even when he stood in the pocket and threw, he had some really, really nice throws. Like, he was connecting with the receivers and made use of the run game as well. I mean, like, he commanded the field. He looked like how we have come to expect Caleb Evans to be, whether it was in relief of Cody Fajardo or whomever, when he came into the game. Like, that's what we had expected out of him. And this year, now with Davis Alexander at the helm, can we see potentially Caleb Evans being moved up to number 2? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, both Caleb Evans and and James Morgan wanted to make the case that they belong on this team. And keeping 4 quarterbacks with Jonathan Senecal getting limited action tonight, it's pretty obvious that he's going to be put on the practice roster. I think there's no two ways about that. But ultimately, you can't keep 4 quarterbacks. Now, it sounds crazy to think that maybe you would be getting rid of McLeod Bethel-Thompson, but when you've got Caleb Evans playing like he did tonight, James Morgan was given a lot of opportunities to showcase what he can do and looked solid for the most part. We had a couple of flubs here and there, but again, it's preseason. That's going to happen to everybody. While it would sound crazy at first to show MBT the door, especially considering that's who you traded to Edmonton, or that's who Edmonton traded to you to get Cody Fajardo. I mean, this quarterback room right now, as it sits, I mean, can you really truly have 4 quarterbacks, 5 if you count Senecal on the practice roster? I mean, keeping 2 practice roster quarterbacks seems crazy because, again, as soon as a quarterback goes down to injury, someone on the team can come along and sign said quarterback off of the practice roster. So it's going to make a really difficult competition because essentially it feels like it's going to be Caleb Evans versus James Morgan. And one of those 2 guys are going to be shown the door tomorrow night.
That obviously, I actually agree with you. I think that's what I was thinking too. But I mean, if you look at Caleb's numbers, I mean, he was 8 of 11 for 111 yards and a passing touchdown. Also had a rushing touchdown too, and that was only 1 quarter. You know, James Morgan, he went 12 of 19 for 126 and 1 touchdown, and that was in just it was over 2 quarters, and then a slight bit at the end. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you to when he came in, and Jonathan Senecal, he replaced Jonathan Senecal basically to kneel down the ball or try to, whatever, run out the clock. Again, we understand the defenses that these guys are going up against. Caleb Evans, in my opinion, does have a little bit of a hands up because of his running ability. There really weren't any short yardage situations, I think, that the Alouettes went through tonight that really would be able to gauge what they would normally do. To you, seeing Caleb's stats just for 1 quarter versus what James Morgan did, I mean, does that really, do you think, make the decision on whether James will be 3 practice roster or off?
It's really hard to say because we didn't get a chance to see very much of Caleb Evans at training camp. I mean, we did see him, and what we did see looked good, but there were times too where he looked not so good. So, I mean, it was almost like he was saving his best for this evening, which, again, in a sense, that's what you have to do, is save yourself for when the lights are on, and everybody's watching, as opposed to, balling out in training camp sessions where almost nobody's there. And then as soon as you get into an actual game situation and you falter under the lights, I mean, that's not ideal either. Do I think Caleb Evans has done enough to remain a member of this team? I'd say yes. Has James Morgan done enough to remain a member of this team? Also, yes. But essentially, like, I truly think it's going to be between those 2 guys. Perhaps Montreal may not have a choice but to put both Jonathan Senecal and, I'll say for the sake of argument, James Morgan on the practice roster and hope and pray that nobody tries to poach those guys. I mean, Senecal truly has been limited in his reps. I mean, it's not that he's looked terrible, but I mean, he really hasn't had a chance to do very much in those 2 preseason games. That could be by design as well. Maybe they truly do want to kind of treat him like they did with Davis Alexander in his first year, was just let him get a little taste of action, but basically throw him in the slow cooker and let him marinate. Let him learn from all of these quarterbacks and let him learn how to become a professional. Because playing at UDM and playing for the Montreal Alouettes are 2 completely different animals altogether. And expecting too much too soon out of Senecal is, it's just going to stunt his development more than anything else. He's in the best possible scenario, as far as I'm concerned, if he stays on the practice roster and gets a chance to learn from all of these quarterbacks and learning from also too Anthony Calvillo. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like, to have all these teachers at the ready for you is like, Senecal has to be like pinching himself. Must think he's dreaming. because this is how you're going to develop him into a top caliber quarterback, not just for this organization, but for the Canadian Football League as a whole. But you cannot rush him along. So he's definitely going to end up on the practice roster. But at the same time, Montreal needs to really assess what they've got. And yeah, I mean, I do not envy this coaching staff when it comes to having to making those hard decisions. But maybe, just maybe, you keep all 5 and hope and pray that someone doesn't come along in need of a quarterback and snags one or even both of those guys that we talked about.
I don't know that I honestly don't think that is going to happen, with all honesty. I've heard a wide-ranging views from people in different media organizations when it comes to what they think is going to be happening with Jonathan Senecal. I mean, you look at how, I don't want to call it unceremoniously, how he was pulled just so he couldn't finish the game. It makes me wonder if really the coaching staff has made the decision already, and Senecal may not be a part of the Alouettes roster in 2025. Now, mind you, we've seen things before in the past where a guy has done absolutely amazing, has balled out in camp, and not been picked to stay on the team in any way, shape, or form. And I'll give you a good example. Fabian Guerra. There's a perfect example right there. He had an amazing camp, did not make the final cut either way.
Yeah, he unfortunately had to be sacrificed in order for Cole Speaker to remain a member of this team. And again, hindsight's always 2020, and it turned out it was the right move to make. But you're absolutely right. Having an amazing camp or amazing preseason, it helps, but at the same time, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a spot, because that happens every year. It seems like there's always 1 or 2 players that just play like their hair's on fire. They do amazing things, and they still get cut. Reggie Stubblefield in 2023 is another great example. Yeah. And thankfully, the Alouettes were able to remedy that in short order. Now, it took injuries for that to happen, but at the same time, thankfully, and they were very close to not even having his services, but they were able to bring him back. So one has to wonder, as I talked about, there's 1 or 2 players that I felt were just absolutely outstanding. And personally, I can't imagine them not being on the team in some way, shape, or form, but we won't truly know this until 10 o'clock tomorrow evening. So, and we may still get that list and be like, what the F? How do you let this guy go? Because that was us, over the past couple of years on certain players. And okay, you have to trust that the organization knows what they're doing. And sometimes you get lucky. Like I said, the best example would be with Reggie Stubblefield, but I mean, like, it's going to be tough. I mean, whether you like it or not, there are going to be a couple of, I think, real shockaroos when it comes to final cuts. And well, we'll just have to see what happens at that point.
Yep. Just to, at least to let everybody know that VZ led the team in receiving yards, 4 receptions for 63 yards and a touchdown. Tajon Lindsay had 49 yards on 6 receptions for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. Barbon 33, Scott 32. And this is where I think we need to start our conversation, as you're just kind of hinting at, when it came to players that we saw that really stood out tonight, that we really think will be making this roster. At least we think will be making this roster. And that would be Travis Thies. I mean, what a game this dude had tonight. Not only receiving, but returns. Oh my Lord.
Yeah, I mean, he was like a little wrecking ball down there. I mean, my goodness. And just stout, too. I mean, he's got a little bit of that AJ Ouellette in him, as far as, like trying to tackle a bowling ball. Like, he was tough to bring down. And that's what you absolutely love to see. I mean, again, James Letcher is not going to have any sleepless nights as a result of this play. But, again, finding someone like that, which, again, 2 weeks ago, you didn't know who the hell Tias is or Tice is. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I believe the announcers tonight on TSN were calling him Tice. So I think I'm going with that. So I mean, they're the professionals.
Is this kind of a Charlize Theron type of thing?
Maybe. And just like Charlize Theron, I mean, he looked outstanding. Let me tell you.
But that I texted you a little bit during the game, and once I saw him do what he did, I think it was in the fourth. I said, "This," and to me, I think this guy will make the squad in some way, shape, or form. And there are a couple of guys too that you mentioned to me also in our game thread that for you stood out that you really think that will be making the squad some way or another.
Oh yeah, Christian McFarland. Holy moly, this guy was just outstanding. Just heads up tackle after tackle. He was getting right in the quarterback's grill and stopping receivers dead in their tracks. I mean, he was just all over the place on special teams as well. He was all over the field and making plays happen. I mean, this guy just has a motor like nothing else. It is absolutely outstanding. Again, I would be very, very surprised if he ends up being that player that we talk about, the one that plays absolutely outstanding and somehow gets cut. I just can't fathom at this point not having Christian McFarland at least on the practice roster. And Nate Beauchemin, second round pick of the Montreal Alouettes. Woo! He was playing outstanding too. Even had a fumble recovery, if you can believe that. My goodness. I mean, just great heads up play. And it kind of makes me laugh. If he becomes a superstar in Montreal, the name Nate Beauchemin, yet he's from Calgary, if I'm not mistaken. Or he played for Calgary. I think he's from Vancouver. Like, he's got a French last name, but I'm sure it is very much, English as all get out. So, I mean, he'll get a chance to practice his French if he wants to, but if he makes the team, which, again, I'd be very surprised if Nate Beauchemin doesn't make this team as well. I mean, those two guys were just absolute studs out there on defense. And that Noel Thorpe, I mean, he was bringing it too. Like, I mean, a lot of his pressures, a lot of the blitzing and it was kind of funny watching him play man coverage as well, especially in the latter half of the game, just to really see what he has in his arsenal. And he's got to be very impressed with this defense. I mean, like, even though these guys are not starters or, like they're the 2s and the 3s, essentially, they were playing some outstanding football. They were bruising. They were, making plays happen. It was definitely a great sight to see.
Yeah. By the way, Denny brings up a good point too. Speaking of a French sounding name, but they're not.
Yeah, Don Callis, which yeah, that it's going to be very interesting, especially it's almost worth keeping him on the roster just for the headlines in like, the Journal de Montréal or La Presse or anything like that, just to see Callis or it's Callis, but it sounds a little too much like a naughty word in Quebecois. So
yeah, exactly.
Pretty funny stuff.
Yeah, and we had some guys too. I mean, I think Denny made a comment too about VZ. I mean, what a catch! Even Woo! Gino. I think they were interviewing Gino Lewis during the game, near the end of the game, and he commented on. I mean, that catch, and mind you, perfect throw, great throw by.
Yeah,
what gives for the quarterback, and then you got this great catch by VZ in the end zone.
It was poetry in motion, quite frankly. I mean, that pass by Morgan, that was like shades of Ricky Ray. Just drop it in the bucket. Like, that was absolutely outstanding. And yeah, VZ to turn the way he did, and it was almost a one-handed catch, but I mean, he just barely got the other hand there in time to secure it. But I mean, that was just absolutely outstanding. What an effort. And he too is someone who I just can't not see on this team. I mean, yeah, there's no shortage of great receivers in this Alouettes lineup, but Jordan Vesey definitely belongs on this team without question. Tyjon Lindsey too. I mean, for his first half alone, I think he more or less has secured himself a spot on this team. And that's the thing we'll talk about too. Like, what the players that we mentioned could go either way as far as active roster or practice roster. I mean, these are guys, as far as I'm concerned, definitely have done what they needed to do to warrant a spot of some sort on this team.
Yeah, no, I agree. Anything that really stood out to you when it came to a more defensive side, special teams, that type of thing? Because they said everything was really everywhere. What about our some of our draft picks? Because Tiger Shanks, considering he got the start tonight, Seemed to be because I know that the broadcast kind of centered on him a little bit too. I think he did. He had a very good game.
Yeah, played very solid. Definitely gave whoever the quarterback was plenty of time and space. I mean, that's what you want out of your right tackle, essentially. So did not look out of place whatsoever. Again, Nate Beauchemin, as I talked about, second round pick, definitely played some outstanding football tonight. Aside from that, the other draft picks, most of them got into the game and did things, but nothing that was like jaw-droppingly outstanding, unfortunately. But again, it's all about evaluation. It's all about making the most of the opportunities when you get them. And I don't feel like anybody took plays off, to tell you the truth. I feel like everybody was going out there and giving it their all, and as they should, because this is your opportunity. If you only get 2 reps, you better make those 2 reps absolutely outstanding if you want to have even just a shot of making this team. And there's nobody was dogging it, and that's what I'd like to see. I like to see guys that are hungry, that want to compete, that want to be a part of this. I want the coaches to have a sleepless night tonight, deciding who they got to keep, who stays and who goes. I want them to be sweating about this, because that means if they have to labor over this, they have to really think about it. That just means that they're truly dedicated to picking the best of this lot and making sure that those people are members of the Montreal Alouettes in 2025.
And by the way, we still got to talk about the Owls the defense tonight did come away with 3 quarterback sacks. And it was Vaughn's, it was Harris, and it was is it Prevlion had 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. My goodness, they were not afraid to put the wood to the quarterbacks, and once again, that's what's expected out of you. I mean, I felt there was a lot of times though where this defensive line didn't quite put that much pressure on the quarterback, especially when Dustin Crum was in there, because he too was able to, like, that guy is crafty as hell. I mean, he's able to get out and what looks like a busted play, he somehow manages to make chicken salad out of chicken poop and get some really outstanding things for Ottawa. And again, we saw what Matthew Schultz is able to do, and we're so happy that he's been given the opportunity to compete for the Ottawa RedBlacks and be a part of this team. Like, it's Drew Brown's team no matter what, but I mean, we're still big believers in Matthew Schultz. We know what he's capable of doing if given the opportunity. But Dustin Crum got most of the reps tonight, and again, he did some pretty outstanding stuff as well. So, I mean, I think Ottawa's quarterback room, I think they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, and now, obviously, we will find out the good, the bad, and the ugly coming up on Saturday at 10. Or at least, that's when it's supposed to be done. We'll find out after that fact. What bad stuff did you take away from this game tonight, besides Mother Nature and her crying and throwing a tantrum for that first hour?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I was wondering, like, I mean, what if the weather stayed bad? I mean, imagine having to cancel this game. I mean, it would absolutely suck as far as like trying to evaluate talent, and suck for fans too, like to not have the opportunity to go and watch potential future stars of this league playing. But yeah, I didn't really see too much bad out there, like not stuff that was just glaringly awful. I mean, as I talked about, the compete level on this squad right now had to be at the top, and I feel like for the most part, mistakes were made. I mean, nobody was, I thought dreadful or anything like that. There's nobody that was like, oh, get this guy off the field. What the hell's he doing here? There was none of that. There was mistakes were made, and you kind of like, oh, okay, maybe don't do that in real life, kind of thing. Like, it's just, I think this team tonight really showed that they belong. They did everything they could to show that they belong. I think they left everything out there, which is what you want to see as far as talent evaluation goes. And I really do think that the coaches tonight are going to have a very hard time. I'm sure there was a couple of guys that they probably thought right away, it was like, okay, unless this guy just blows the doors off everybody, he's gone. And maybe some difficult. I hope that those, if there were players like that they played so well that they're like, oh, maybe maybe we gotta. Do we get rid of this guy
Yeah.
so easily? I don't know. Like, I mean, those are the conversations I want this coaching staff to have amongst themselves, and I want them to really, I want to feel like they're definitely going to put their best roster together. And the players that do get cut, it doesn't mean that they're bad. Let's make that very clear right now. Is that it's not that they're bad players or they played awful. It's just that you only have so many spots on there. There's only so many roster spots, and as you know, a lot of them have already been filled by guys who did not make the trip to Ottawa tonight.
Yeah.
So I mean, we don't know truly just how many spots were up for grabs, so to speak. But I'm truly expecting this coaching staff and this organization to have some really, really difficult conversations into the night as they decide ultimately who stays and who goes for this team.
No, it's going to be a very interesting bus trip back to whether they go to the Big O first or whether they go to St. Jerome. It's going to be either way. It's going to be a very interesting trip, needless to say, for for Coach Moss and for Danny and for the rest of the football ops. So it's going to be very interesting. So, two things that really stood out to me, by the way,
Good.
and they weren't necessarily Homer Simpson's or cut moments, but maybe that one again. If it's mistakes were made, the Jose Barbone drop.
Oof.
It was a perfectly put ball, and he just dropped it. And my first thought was, Homer Simpson, you're cut. I don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If this is kept.
Tice, you mean?
Dice, yeah. Theron.
Travis. We'll just go with Travis.
Yeah. And then there was my thought too, is that it's a guy that we have seen here, and he's made huge strides over the past couple of years since he's been with the Alouettes. Shedler Furvius, but yet he comes in midway or potentially 3/4 of the way into the fourth?
Yeah.
That to me, again, I'm not the coaching staff, but that seems more concerning than James Morgan coming in and replacing Jonathan Senecal with 2.5, one or whatever was left.
Yeah, because I agree. Like Shedler, as far as I'm concerned, is a true talent and someone who's just going to get better with time. But that series, I mean, mind you, those were two really bad balls that were thrown to him. So I mean, like, there's not a whole lot he can do in that point. But the fact that he barely got any attention this evening also too made me wonder, because okay, there's certain players you want to see make plays and really help evaluate. Like Shedler first, he's been on this team now this is going to be if he makes the squad, it's going to be his third year. So I mean, he has been a part of this organization, and they've been very high on him for a long time. It's just simply a matter of giving him the opportunity to get out onto the field. And maybe tonight was just a matter of there's no question. Shedler belongs to this team, but we got to get him out there and let him do something. And I'm wondering if that was it with him. It's just a simple matter of get him out there for the sake of justifying bringing him to Ottawa, because I mean, that was like if you're going to go based on that performance, it wasn't the best. But also, I will say the balls that were thrown to him were just not good. In fact, I'll be honest. James Morgan, as good as he played, he threw some real doozies tonight as well. I mean, he was not perfect by any stretch. So let's before we start anointing him as perhaps the next great Alouettes quarterback, there was a couple of throws too that I have to question with him. And whereas Caleb truly didn't make any mistakes. So I mean, if tonight was if the play tonight was to decide whether it's going to be Caleb Evans or James Morgan that stays on the team, I mean, that makes it even tougher, right? Because what Caleb Evans can do, and he was, I won't say flawless, but he was extremely good tonight, whereas James Morgan was very good, I'll say, but not perfect. And maybe he had to be perfect tonight in order to guarantee himself a spot on this team. So that also creates a discussion as well as far as who is going to be part of this. And going back to what I talked about earlier, is there some way of keeping all 5 quarterbacks? But can you really afford to do that? I just don't see it happening. I really don't. I mean, it would be unprecedented, but I just don't see any way that you can have 5 quarterbacks, whether it's like 3 active, 2 practice. it would just be so bizarre and so unlike what I would come to expect from this organization. But stranger things have happened.
It takes away a position from another player. And this isn't training camp. With all than what he did tonight, he got the more. His stats were better than Caleb, but he had more time. Caleb did all of his in the first quarter. I still don't get the Senecal, the pulling of Senecal late in the fourth. I keep going back and forth. I honestly don't know who is going to make this roster as potentially our practice roster quarterback.
Makes me wonder. Can you put MBT on the 6-game injured list? Like, can you invent an injury for him if only to give? This way you keep everybody, and it kind of you'd be delaying the inevitable. Let's call it what it is. But I mean,
yeah,
I think that's the only way you could sort of have all these guys in camp to properly evaluate and see what they can do. But
it goes back to how Morgan was on the team last year. He was practice roster and then released, but then brought back. Decision is, I know I'm leaning one way, but I'm curious to know if that I've been wrong before. I really have when I've seen some, with my type of evaluation, and I've been wrong before. So,
well, we all have. I mean, like, as I said, it seems to be every year. There's always that one or two, like, what the heck cuts that you just, you may not completely understand, and you just have to hope that, this organization knows what they're doing. And let's be honest, past couple of years, the Alouettes, they've made moves that were kind of head scratchers, but at the same time, if it works, you don't question it anymore. And let's face it, 2 years ago, this team went to the Grey Cup and won it. Last year, they had the best overall record in the Canadian Football League and damn near went back to the Grey Cup. So what they're doing for the most part is working. So, like, to the point where if they make a decision, you have to believe it's the best possible decision. You just may not understand it initially at first. You may be going, well, why'd you keep this guy but not that guy? Like, kind of thing. But it's you when they talk about trust the process, it's things like this where you really truly have to trust the process. You may not understand it, you may question it even, but you can't argue through results. If the goal here is to put together the best possible team, which absolutely it is, you have to trust that the decisions that are going to be made, whether you like them or not, are the right ones to ensure that the Montreal Alouettes are a successful football team in 2025.
Yeah, one of the few things I did see, because the final stats I did receive them from the league. Supposedly the announced attendance in Ottawa tonight was 17,820. Okay,
Sure.
They all came as raindrops.
Basically.
Yeah.
Or once again, as I like to say, they came dressed like chairs.
Yes. One of the few things I think that was a huge positive for last week versus this week. I'm just trying to find the actual numbers here. Well, I'm actually wrong. I thought that they weren't as egregious as they were last week, but it seems to be that the penalty bug was still there for both teams. It was 16 penalties. 15 penalties overall for 138 total yards. The Alouettes had 9 for 81. So I guess it was slightly different from how I saw it last week in stadium versus this week on TV. But still, it's another thing that could it be the difference between somebody getting cut and not? Yeah, it could.
100%. Like I said, especially if you're literally on the fence about one or two players, and you're like, okay, well, yeah, they both did amazing things, but that penalty is something you simply cannot be doing, especially in a game that counts. You can't be making, and it could truly come down to something as minuscule as that. Is just like one little mistake essentially sends you packing. And fair or not, that's just how football is sometimes. And again, I mean, like, if these guys get cut, let's not forget, injuries happen all the time. Maybe other teams too can come along and put these guys on their practice roster. The Alouettes too could be looking at, they'll probably be looking at cuts as well from other teams and thinking, hey, that guy was pretty good.
That's true.
So I mean, it's never completely over as far as I'm concerned. Like, I mean, player gets cut, it sucks. It's, I'm sure they're at that point they're thinking, oh, man, I did everything I could and it wasn't good enough. All you can do at that point if you're that player is just, keep working, keep grinding, keep doing everything you can, and keep your cell phone charged, because you never know. All it takes is 1 or 2 injuries, and you know what? That team is bringing you back right away, and you got to be ready to go.
Yeah, 100%. As a reminder, if you missed the top of the show, we are still looking to do our 2025 roster reveal once it does come about. And so look for that on potentially sometime on Sunday evening or night, but stay tuned to all of our socials for that information when we're going to do that. And, it's become a yearly tradition, and we hope to continue it.
Yeah. Again, folks, as I talked about, if you're watching us on YouTube, like, subscribe, X, Facebook Live, make sure you're following us, make sure your notifications are turned on, so that when we do decide to go live, or first we'll announce it, obviously, but when we do decide to go live, you'll be ready, you'll be notified. It's it doesn't cost you anything, so make sure you do that, because we definitely would like to have you all on board with us on Sunday evening as we talk about who did make the team and ultimately who did not make the team. And
exactly,
as I said, every year there's at least 1 or 2 players that were just like, ooh, really? He's gone. Okay. I mean, and listen, sure it could be a veteran too. Let's make something very clear.
Yep.
We've seen veterans too get cut for any number of reasons. It's not just the rookies that, this is their first time coming up to Canada and trying to play football here. I mean, we've seen honest to goodness veterans, the guys who have won Grey Cups, guys who have, played in the league for years, be shown the door. I mean, listen, nothing's guaranteed. I mean, certain players, yes, are guaranteed, but I mean, when we talk about those final cuts, there always seems to be a couple of those like moves that you're just taken aback by, like you're just caught off guard by. So yeah, we'll break it all down Sunday evening. That's one thing for sure. Regardless of who is shown the door, you'll hear about it from us. We'll offer up our thoughts on it, and essentially, basically put a bow, if you will, on this training camp experience for 2025.
Exactly. And my last thing, it's just a real quick note, because I'm mentioning people that really stood out. I think it's just a great story. Kasim Ferdinand, obviously, Cliff, if anybody knows, his father played for the Montreal Concord. And for him to be able to play in a Montreal uniform, they gave him props tonight on the broadcast tonight. And we don't know what's going to happen with this young man. We'll see where he ends up on the roster or not. But it's a great story nonetheless, just knowing that, he never got to see his dad play. But to know that he's being able to play pro football in Canada with, the Montreal CFL franchise.
Yeah, that's one of those feel-good kind of moments, just to see him get out there, even though he kind of got limited reps tonight, but that he was able to get out there and at least showcase as best as he can what he was able to do. Definitely amazing. So, I mean, if he makes this roster, it's definitely a great story. If not, one has to think that his football journey is far from over. So, props to the young man
tonight. He got a catch, one single catch. That's the thing. He got on the board. So,
and you know what? Sometimes that's all it takes, is just being able to do that. And again, if it's not the team that you're on that wants to keep you and have you stick around, there's still 8 other teams that'd be like, you know what? I see something in him. I think I'm going to take a flyer on him. Yeah. You just never know.
Nope. We've seen it before. We really appreciate everybody who stuck around tonight, especially with Mother Nature doing her due diligence and keeping us waiting for an extra hour tonight. But again, we always appreciate you guys when you do join us for Flight Deck Live. We will be, as I said, stay tuned for all of our socials for our roster show on Sunday, and obviously make sure that you do stay tuned for our next upcoming podcast episode on Wednesday. And by the way, if you haven't caught it already, go back and listen, because they were done late this week because we had a certain thing we had to do. We explained it in the podcast, but it is now available if you happen to miss this week's episode. It's all about opening up that summer cottage. So for the last time tonight, for Cliffy D, I am Tim Capper. We'll talk to you soon.